Hello students. In the previous lecture, we started looking at the cache memories and we proceeded to understand how the cache works by answering four questions. The very first question we tried to look at was placement, um, meaning uh, we, where can we place a block in the cache. Now, as the memory hierarchy dictates that the size of cache is small and the main memory or the RAM, which whatever you want to call, is huge. Typically, our main memory is in some gigabytes, 8 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte, etc. But the caches are quite small. In your under the hood experiment, you would have seen the caches sizes, right? They'll be in kilobytes or hardly a few megabytes, right? So at any given moment, only some portion of the main memory can be placed in the cache. Now, the first question will help us answer where we can place a block in the cache. So, accordingly, we saw three different types of mappings. One is fully associative mapping, the second is direct mapping, and the third is a middle ground of both, which is set associative mapping. As an example, we saw that there is a main memory of size 32 blocks, and we have three caches here, right? Each of size 8 blocks. So the size of all the three configurations is still same. Now, if we want to place block number 13 somewhere in a fully associative cache, we can place it anywhere, which any location which is free, right? So it can be block uh, 7 or block 6, so on and so forth, or it can be block 1 in the fully associative cache. Wherever we find an empty space, we can place it there. In when it comes to the direct map cache, there is one and only one specific place where we can place this block. And how do we find that out? Is we take the block address here 13, and here we have 8 rows. We also call them as sets in this direct map cache. So we do uh, we look at the remainder of 13 upon 8, right? So which is 5. So this particular block 13 can be placed in only set 5. Now if the question is, let's say there is already a block sitting in placed in set 5, what do we do? So we need to uh, kick that out and place this new block. So this kind of scenario is called a conflict. So where the new incoming block finds that already uh, a block is there in the location assigned to it, right? So the old block will be replaced, moved to the next level in the hierarchy, which is below, means farther from the processor, and this new block is placed in its place. So in the direct map cache, there is only one and a location for each of the blocks to be placed. And in fully associative cache, it can be placed anywhere in the cache, right? Wherever it is, wherever a free space is found. And the set associative cache is a middle ground of both. And here we have a two-way set associative cache, and because the cache capacity is 8 here, the number of sets is 8 upon 2, which is 4. So two blocks form a set. Now how do we find out the set where this block number 13 belongs to, right? What we do is we divide the block address here 13 upon the number of sets, which is 4, and the remainder is 1. So it can be placed in either of these locations in set 1. So either as the first block or second block in set 1, whichever is free. Or if it is not free, just like the direct map cache, we need to uh, replace it with the new block. So this is the block placement of the cache. Now let's move on and look at the second question. Now let's assume that some data is already stored in the cache, and I got a request to the cache saying give me the data of location of, let's say, 1000h, right? 1000h is the address for us. Now all we have is an address, and with that address we need to identify whether this there is a block in the cache with this particular uh, address 1000h, and if it is there we call that as a hit. If it is not there, then it's a miss. Now uh, because we need to look at the address, let's try to understand it a little more closely. Let's assume that here is our address, the given address of the block for which we need to look do a lookup for. Okay, address is logically split into three parts: block, offset, index, and tag. Tag and index together are also called as block address. Okay, so if we add the block offset also, it's the actual address. Block offset, the number of bits that contribute to block offset is log 2 of the block size itself, right? And the index bits, the number of index bits that we need is log of number of sets, and the remaining bits are termed as tag. Now let's take that this entire address is of 40 bits width, and let's say our block offset is 16 bytes. Now you know that the memory is byte addressable, so each of the byte will have its own unique address, but we are not referring to each particular byte in the cache, but rather we are looking at it as a block. Now the block size is 16 bytes, so the block offset is 4. The LSB position 0 through 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 are belonging to block offset. Then let's assume that our cache size is 128 bytes. Now how do I find, how do I we find the number of sets? Here we need to look at first how many blocks would fit in. Each block size is 16 bytes, and 128 upon 16 is 8. So in this cache of 128 bytes, we can have 8 blocks of 16 bytes each. Okay. Now, if you want to give the number of sets, here we need to look at what type of cache mapping it is, whether it is direct mapped or two-way set associative mapping or fully associative. Here two-way is just an example. Okay, it can be any n way, two-way, four ways, 8-way, or etc., anything like that. Okay. Now with the number of blocks, what we can determine is the set based on the mapping. If it is direct mapped, like I mentioned in the previous slide, each block has its own unique position. So we have 8 sets in a direct mapped cache. Okay, and the darker shade is for the tag, and the white space is for the data. Okay, so in the direct mapped cache we have 8 sets, and so we need 3 bits to identify each any of these 8 sets. So the index bits would be 3, and the tag bits would be 40 minus the number of index bits, which is 3, minus the number of block offset bits. So 33 bits would be tag, 3 bits are for index, and 4 bits are for block offset. Okay, it means that in each of this darker square, you can say, of the block, we are storing 33 bits. Now the index bits positions would be bit positions 4, 5, and 6, and the tag positions would be 7 through 39. This is for a direct map cache. Now let's look at the two-way set associative mapping, and the number of sets in a set associative cache is total number of blocks divided by the associativity. So here the number of sets is 8 upon 2, which is 4. So we will have 4 sets, and each set has 2 blocks in it, and each block has tags and the data associated with it. So the index bits are 2 and the tag bits are 34. It means that each of the tag uh, bits in one particular block will be 34 bits wide. Here in direct mapping it was 33 bits wide, and the index bit positions are 4 and 5 in the address, and the tag bit positions are 6 through 39. Now when it comes to fully associative cache, a block can be placed anywhere, right? It means that there is only one set. So the number of index bits is 0. It means that for a fully associative cache, the address is split only in as tag and block offset. The tag would be now 36 bits, and that means that each of the block in a fully associative cache will have 36 bits in it, right? And the tag bit positions are 4 through 39. So you can see now that for the same address, depending on the mapping that we are using, whether it is direct mapped or fully associative or set associative cache, we have different location where we can find the block. So for that, we need to know the block offset, meaning the block size. We need to know the total address width. We need to know the total cache capacity, along with the type of the cache, whether it is direct mapped or fully associative or set associative. That will help us to identify the number of sets, and accordingly we can split the address. Okay, now we have an address, and based on the mapping we have divided that into the number of bits, and we are ready with the value, right? We have masked, or just like you have extracted the offset function 3, function 7, etc., right? In the same way, this address will go through few AND gates, for example, and we get the appropriate index bits, block offset bits, and tag bits. What do we do next? Let's take each of the um, mappings and see how we are going to identify whether a block is there or not. So in a direct mapped cache, we have a single data array and corresponding tag array, right? And to identify one particular set, we need a decoder. Now let's assume that the cache size is 2 power k blocks. It means that there are 2 power k blocks in my data array and tag array. So accordingly, I need k bits to identify one particular set. So in my n bit address, the block offset is removed, and after that the k bits will be extracted, and they will help me to identify one particular set. So let's say this is my set to which this particular address is mapped to. Now what happens is the decoder will activate this particular set in the tag and data arrays, right? And the address or the values which are there in that particular set will be read out. What happens next is the tag bits which are read out will be compared with the tag of the requested address. So the number of tag bits is n minus k plus b. So here b is the number of bits of block offset, k is the number of index bits, and total address width is n. So these let's t bits are then used to compare with the t bits that we have stored in the tag array. If they have matched, then it means that the requested address is already available in the cache. That is termed as a hit. If there is no tag match, then we will say it is a miss. So this particular output of hit or miss is also used to select the data. So all the uh, bits of the block are available. For example, let's say the processor is requesting for only 4 bytes, but the block offset is 64 bytes. Now, which 4 bytes among these 64 bytes should we send back to the processor is determined by the block offset. So The among the 64 bytes, which 4 bytes are needed are selected by the block offset here B. So if it is a hit and uh, if it is a hit, only then the data mux will pick the appropriate 4 bytes and forward it to the processor or forward it to the next level of cache, whatever it is. So uh, this is how a typical direct mapped cache would work. Given an address, we split it into block offset, index, and tag. The index bits will be used to identify an entry in the tag array and data array. The entry in the tag array will be compared with the requested address tag. If there is a match, it is called hit. If it is not, then it's a miss. If it is a hit, then from the data array, we use the block offset to select one particular word and send it back to the processor. A set now can be interpreted as a row. Here, because it's direct map, each set has only one block with it. Now let's look at the working of set associative cache. So let's consider this same cache size, which is 2 power k blocks, and let's say it is two-way. Now what it means is we have two data arrays and two tag arrays, or let's call them together as a data array and tag array, right? And the number of rows in are each of these ways, you can say, are 2 power k upon 2, which is 2 power k minus 1. That's how we calculate the number of sets, right? So each of these ways has 2 power k minus 1 blocks. We term the ways as way 0 or way 1. If it is 4 way, then it would be way 0, way 1, way 2, way 4, way 3, right? Now let's say we have the address and bit address, the block offset is there, then the index bits are now k minus 1. Those k minus 1 bits are taken and it will pick one particular set of this two-way set associative cache. It means that two tag uh, entries and two data entries will be active now. All of them will be read out. Okay, now the requested tag will be of t bits will be matched with the tag of both way 0 and way 1, right? If both of them are a mismatch, then it's called a miss. But if let's say one of them is a hit, then any it's a hit. Obviously both of them cannot be hit. So let's say for some address the way 0 has given an output as miss, but way 1 has given an output of 1, which is a hit case. What it means is now this the output of this tag comparison will be given to the data mux, and this will help the data mux to select the data of way 1 that will be used, and the exact word, again similar to the direct mapped cache, will be picked using the b bits of block offset and read out. So and this word will be forwarded to the processor. Now here a set is a collection of blocks. Number of blocks is given as associativity, and you can interpret the ways as columns. In a two-way set associative cache, there will be two columns for data array and two columns for tag array. In direct mapped cache, there is only one column. Now coming to the last mapping, which is fully associative cache, there will be only one set because the block can be placed anywhere. So imagine a single row of 2 power k blocks. Now how do I identify whether my block is there or not? We split the address into block offset and tag, right? And this tag will be matched to each of those 2 power k blocks, and if any one of them is giving a match, it means that it is a hit, and if all of them are giving a mismatch, then it's called a miss. So when uh, one of the blocks says that it is a tag match, right? Its data array entry will be read, and similar to the previous two cases, the block offset is used to identify the exact word and forward it to the processor. Now, a quick point here is the branch target buffer that we have used in branch prediction is a fully associative cache, because any branch address can be placed anywhere, right? And that is the precise reason we are going to use the entire IP to identify whether it is there or not, just like we are using the tag here. Now, a quick design points. How do we decide on the associativity? Associativity is uh, a simple definition is the number of blocks that have been mapped to the same set. In a direct map cache, it is 1, and in a n-way set associative cache, it is n, and if it is a fully associative cache, it is equal to the number of blocks. Now, how do we decide on associativity? For a fixed cache size, when and for a set of programs, standard programs which are called benchmarks, typically the hardware architects would do a sweep of increasing the associativity from 1 to fully associative cache, and they will observe the hit rate of the cache, right? Typically the curve would look something like this. Till some point the hit rate would improve drastically, and after that it tapers off, right? So the high associativity in general is good because it will lead to low miss rate, primarily because of low conflict misses. And the side effect of that is high hit latency, because we need to compare the tag with more number of tags, right? So, and then identify if any one of them is a match or not. It takes time. And if we observe this curve beyond some point, even if we are increasing the associativity, there is not much increase in the hit rate. So we can assume that some point even before the fully associative cache, we can achieve more or less the same hit rate. If we decide on having a low associative cache, the major gain would be low hit latency, but the miss rate would be high because of high conflicts. Another design question is how to decide on the cache line size or cache block size, right? Each tag is associated with a block of data, that is its definition. And you can imagine that a block is a collection of multiple processor words. If the processor word is 4 bytes or 8 bytes, typically the cache block size is 64 bytes or 128 bytes. Okay. Now we use the block offset obviously to pick one particular processor word. How do we decide on the block size? If we again the for the same set of standard benchmarks, the hardware designers studied how the cache performance would be. The x-axis is now increasing block size, let's say from 1 to maybe 128 byte or 256 bytes, etc. They have observed what would be the hit rate, and typically the graph would look something like this. So we have an inverted U. For small sized blocks, what's happening is the spatial locality is not being exploited well. So if the processor word is 4 bytes and let's say our cache block size is uh, 8 bytes, only two processor words are fitting into it. Now if some spatial locality is there, let's say word 0, word 1 are used, then word 2 is also requested, word 2 would typically result in a miss. So if the block size is too small, then the number of misses can increase uh, because we are not able to capture the spatial locality. Also, if the block size is small, that means that block offset will be small, then the number of tags bits will also increase. But if on the other end, if we go for huge blocks of uh, huge cache blocks, because the cache size is still same. Now let's take example that we saw earlier. The cache size is 128 bytes, and let's say the cache block size is 16 bytes. So we had 8 blocks, 8 unique blocks. Now if I want to increase this cache block size to, let's say, 32 bytes, then only 4 blocks can fit in. But each block will have 32 bytes. That is agreed. But only 4 unique blocks can be placed in the cache. So this can potentially impact the usage of the cache, because even if we want to bring in any new cache block, right, then we are throwing away 32 bytes every time, right? So large blocks can also have a side effect that maybe we are not using all the 32 bytes, we are only using part of it. If there is not enough spatial locality, then it's an overkill. So uh, we need to pick a block size which is not too small or not too big. In addition, for large block sizes, the transfer time between the cache levels will also increase. Let's say to transfer 64 bytes from L1 to L2 or L2 to L1, it takes some finite amount of time. Now to transfer 128 bytes, the time would be twice of it, because the bus length or bus width is typically small. But if you want to have it in the to happen to the within the same time, then we need to increase the bus width. Again, it has impact on area and power. So the cache block size is typically picked somewhere uh, just before there is a dip in the hit rate. The third design parameter is the cache size itself. The cache size is the total number of data blocks that can be fit in the cache. And this cache size typically does not include the tag array, the size of the tag array. Tag array is completely an overhead for us. When we say the cache size is 256 kilobyte, the entire 256 kilobytes is only for the data blocks, not for the tags of those blocks. Now the design question is, how do we decide on the cache size? So again, if we do a sweep of cache size and observe the hit rate, right, it would look something similar to the associativity study. Till some point, we have a drastic improvement in hit rate. After that, it tapers off. So what happens in a small cache is the access latency is less, because the cache is small. It means that the hardware is small, so we can access it faster, or it will work faster, right? But it is not big enough to hold or exploit the temporal locality. Because the cache size is small, we might need to replace the blocks very frequently. That means that if the same block needs to be reused in a small cache, it might be present or might not be present. On the other hand, for a large cache, the temporal locality can be exploited in a much better way. And the side effect is, because the hardware is bigger, the access latency is higher. Again, if we look at the graph, after some point the hit rate tapers off. So the point where it starts to taper off is called the working set of the program. What does working set mean? Is in a given time interval, all the data that has been used by the program will be grouped as a working set. If the working set of the program is small, then a small cache is able to satisfy both the spatial and temporal locality. But if the working set is huge, then we need a bigger cache. Otherwise, it will lead to frequent cache misses. Okay, with that, I have some assignment for you. This is for your own practice. For a given cache size and block size, calculate the number of blocks. The second question is for a given total number of blocks and block size, calculate the total cache size. The third question is for a given cache size, block size, and the type of the cache, whether it is direct mapped or uh, fully associative or some set associative configuration. Find out the number of bits for set or index and the tag. You can assume a 40-bit address and you can work it out. The fourth question is given an address, right, and given the cache configuration, which is cache size, cache block size, and the type of the cache, identify what are the tag, index, and block offset fields. So this will, I hope, gives you a good practice and understanding on how the cache mapping happens. With that, I will pause this lecture. Thank you.